This is BYU Sports Nation, brought to you by the BYU Store, simulcast on BYU TV and BYU Radio. Now from Studio B, your hosts, Jarom Jordan and Jason Shepard.
BYU Sports Nation is live, your day-to-day play-by-play in Studio B, presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere. It is Thursday, September 2nd. We are almost there, people. Oh, so close to game day. Thanks for being here. The season is almost upon us. And hey, that means the BYU football equipment truck, made famous from the Coastal Carolina week, leaving on Tuesday, not knowing if it would actually have the game, but made it to Coastal Carolina, of course, is off and running on its way to Vegas right now.
I am very, very jealous of those that get to drive down in that. Have you ever been in a big rig like this? Because I never have.
My stepdad is
the Ute fan?
The Ute, Bruce, really nice guy. Only real flaws that he's a Ute fan. Is a semi-truck driver. So
really?
A couple times growing up.
So I that is kind of like a dream of mine. Like I have cousins.
It's a dream of yours.
Well, I have
Let's
cousins.
make this happen.
I have a cousin and
that's cool.
Like a lot of family of my family back in Missouri.
Yeah.
Have a lot of truck drivers, and so like I grew up kind of around it, but for whatever reason I never had the opportunity to get in one of them. That would be awesome. I feel like Lincoln Hawk from Over the Top. That was Sylvester Stallone's character.
That's a great movie. I watched that like 4 years ago for the first time on a recommendation, maybe from you. It was amazing. Brian Logan was right yesterday. Your haircut looks incredible.
Really?
It really does. I love it.
Wow.
No, I'm dead serious. I love it.
I'm going to be honest. I kind of thought it was a meh one.
It was a meh one?
Like, sometimes you get done with a haircut and you're like, this looks really, really good. Sometimes I'm going to have to not be out in public for a while to let this grow out.
It's a little shorter on the sides, a little longer on the top.
Yes.
I like it.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate that. Yeah. And the stylist at a certain haircut place, I'm sure appreciates it as well. Despite me saying at first I thought it was meh.
Hopefully that person doesn't watch the show. I do want to clear something up. I was actually re-signed to the 53, and Brian was cut.
So you cleared waivers.
I was never cut. But if another place offers me way more, we'll talk. Okay, here's your show lineup. Our official season predictions, projections, and sure to be way off picks are on the way. Can't wait for this. In December to be wrong. Jonny Linehan joins us to discuss not 4th and 19. The Cougars' incredible pairing of Jake Oldroyd and Ryan Rico with special teams. I mean, it is dynamic. Who ended up being re-signed to practice squads or picked up off waivers in the NFL among the BYU guys. And it's a ball night for women's soccer and volleyball. Jason and I on the call. We're excited. We'll chat with the All-American opposite, Kenzie Keorber, who transferred from Utah down to BYU.
Love it.
Why the move and what she brings to the table? Because she's
amazing.
Legit.
She is amazing.
Legit. Here are today's headlines.
Not to steal the thunder from the countdown, but we're 2 days away from BYU football kicking off the season in Vegas against Arizona. Offensive coordinator Aaron Roderick says he'll be leaning on his players who have had experience against the Wildcats.
It is comforting to know that we have some experienced players because of the fact that we don't know a lot about what we're going to get in this game. So there's a lot of unpredictability in this situation. So we're going to need some of our more experienced players to step up and there's going to be some information gathering early in this game.
Countdown to kickoff live from Vegas begins at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time on BYU TV and the app. Shameless plug for the radio side of things. Cougar pregame live on BYU Radio also begins at 8:30 Eastern. Kickoff set for 10:30 Eastern time at the home of the Silver and Black.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome, man. Several Cougars were cut or waived Tuesday, but signed with practice squads around the league yesterday. Some with the same team, some with others. They are Zane Anderson with your Chiefs, Matt Bushman with the Raiders, Bronson Kafusi with the Packers, Corbin Kafusi with the Niners, Troy Warner was cut by the Rams, but picked up by the Bucks.
It had the longest travel to deal with, from L.A. to Tampa.
Luckily, they have planes now. And Chris Wilcox was cut by the Bucks after a hamstring injury, but picked up by the Colts. So best of luck to those guys. That's great.
14th ranked women's soccer hosting Marquette tonight at Southfield. Cougars 2-2 on the season. Both wins coming at home. You can watch at 9 Eastern on the BYU TV app.
The Matt Carlino game. Number 13 women's volleyball begins 3 matches in 3 days with Weber State, the Big Sky champs, who also won in the NCAA tournament last year. They're pretty good. Tonight at 9 Eastern on BYU TV and the app. Then Dixie State tomorrow, TBD on the name. And then Michigan State Saturday. So it's going to be a loaded weekend.
Yes, it is. Men's cross country is the unanimous choice to win the West Coast Conference Championship in the annual preseason poll.
Really?
I know.
The number
Shocker.
2 team in the country or 3 team?
Number 3. We're going to get to that.
Yeah. I stole your thunder.
You did, but that's fine. It's fine. It's fine. BYU enters pretend like you're surprised when I say this. BYU enters the 2021 fall season ranked number 3.
You already said this yesterday.
In the preseason USTF CCCA national poll, which we can't guarantee everybody saw my haircut and the show yesterday.
That's true, and they might just be listening. You're right.
Yes.
Former women's soccer stand-up Michelle Vasconcelos from BYU. Well, she's still a stand-up, but former BYU soccer player Michelle Vasconcelos signed with Sevilla FC in Spain. That's awesome. Vasconcelos played for the Chicago Red Stars, Utah Royals, and is now in Spain.
All right, as we continue to follow the possibility of Big 12 expansion, Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bowlesby released a statement after the conclusion of a 2-day meeting with the remaining athletic directors. This is the statement from the Big 12. Quote, "The 8 ADs remain committed to furthering the Big 12 as one of the nation's premier athletic conferences and look forward to working with our presidents and chancellors to strengthen the league. Future exploration by the group will continue to center on options that best position the long-term strength of the conference," end quote.
Now, we've been following this closely, and this is something we'll continue to follow, obviously, with the Big 12. Oh, I'm being handed something here. Hold on just a second. Looks like BYU Sports Nation has actually released a statement. Let's go to the Big 12
It's a
expansion
Big
desk.
12 expansion update.
This statement from BYU Sports Nation. BYU Sports Nation remains committed to furthering our daily show as one of the nation's premier daily sports talk national simulcast programs focused on BYU. We, as a show and crew, are committed to bringing Cougar fans the latest news and information pertaining to the topics of the Big 12 expansion and all other topics as they pertain to BYU athletics. Future news reporting and advancements as it pertains to BYU Sports Nation will center around the success of the program and our student athlete producers. Back to you.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you for staying in character that entire time.
Wow.
That was as vague of a statement
Wow,
as
a lot to unpack there.
I personally like the music the most out of that.
You know what? We actually have Big 12 expansion news. This is just happening. Max Olson from The Athletic released this information within the last 15 minutes. I'm going to read this straight from the piece that he just posted. The Big 12 continues to engage in serious discussions about future expansion with a current preference of adding 4 new teams, sources tell The Athletic. BYU, Central Florida, Cincinnati, and Houston are the 4 schools that have been most seriously discussed and are considered the leading contenders, sources said. The Athletic previously reported the Big 12 was seriously considering BYU as a potential addition early on in this process. It goes on to say this: if the athletic directors and presidents of the league's 8 remaining members can reach a consensus on which members to invite, sources believe it's possible that the process could move faster than initially anticipated, end quote. That from Max Olson of The Athletic.
Well then, so not a shocker that BYU is in the mix, UCF, Cincinnati, Houston. I think some Boise State fans were hoping that they would be in this mix, not mentioned at least initially. I'm hoping Boise State's in the mix as well. I think that'd be a nice pairing with BYU if that is actually going to happen. But they are talking. They are talking,
Yes.
according to this report, and that's great news because BYU to the Big 12 would be the most validating moment in BYU history outside of winning the national championship and the Heisman.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, as it mentioned, in this piece. If they can get some sort of a consensus, maybe that would speed up the process. We don't know what the timeline is right now.
Right,
there's been
Texas and Oklahoma.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of talk.
Leaving?
When
do you need
Yes,
to
you could
expand?
possibly add 2 with Texas and Oklahoma still in the conference, and then when they leave, then add 2 more.
Yes.
And obviously you would think, because of BYU's ability to maneuver without a conference, that they
Single and ready to mingle,
they would
Jason.
be one of the 2, if they get an invite, that would be most likely to jump early and then 2 more later. You would think.
Someone create BYU, a fake BYU on LinkedIn, and then have it with that little green arc that's like open to being included in a Power 5. That would be really fun. Okay, all rise and shout. It's time for What's Trending.
You're talking about it, and so are we. It's What's Trending on BYU Sports Nation.
Big 12's what's trending, and so are our predictions on the season. So these are sure to fail, which is always exciting. Some of which will hit, some won't.
We're going to hit them all.
That's a very great outlook. Our BYU football preseason projections, Spencer included in this. Talked to Spence yesterday. He's doing better, which is great. We hope to get him in here as soon as we can, which is awesome. But we'll give his projections as well. So let's start off with the most important thing that is out there outside of the record. The quarterback's touchdown passes. Jaron Hall. How many touchdown passes will Jaron Hall throw this year?
I have Jaron Hall with 26 TD passes this year.
26. Why 26?
I went a little bit more. I expect, obviously, Jaron, because of his running ability, to be able to score on the ground and score several touchdowns that way.
Gotcha.
But I basically averaged out 2 passing touchdowns a game and then added 2 more. Basically didn't want to go right at 24, so I just went with 26. It's the logic right there.
I'm going 30. Just a little higher. I think it's 30 number, which would be really high.
I'll take it.
And Spencer says 25, so there are projections. Who will be the leading receiver and how many yards?
We all agree on the player.
Yeah.
It's the yardage. It'd be weird if we all agreed on the exact yardage as well. Gunnar Romney is who I've got, and I've got him with 950 yards.
Woo, 950 would be nice. That'd be really nice. I have him at 877, so just a little under.
Very specific.
I think the depth of the receiving core, granted some injuries they're dealing with, right, is going to prevent him from being a 1,000-yard guy. Also, kind of the schedule's a little tougher, right? But Gunnar had 800-something last year. So he's going to improve on that against a tougher schedule. Spencer says 800. There you go.
Okay.
Who will lead the team in rushing? Consensus on the guy, which is pretty obvious.
Tyler Algier. We all three went with Tyler Algier. I had him at 1,030. I think he will have the same impact. I don't know if the yards will be there simply because we'll be facing better defenses. Yeah. But I still think he's a 1,000-yard rusher in a schedule like this.
I think he will too. For the sake of being closer to the pin, I went with 947, and Spencer goes 1,050. The winner gets a lifetime supply of Tucanos from the others. That's what's on the line. Who will lead in touchdowns? So rushing and receiving combination.
I went with Tyler Algier, and I had 10.
I think that's a good choice. Although I went, just to mix it up, I went Lopini Katoa. Just see if he can't have, I don't know, what if he has 3 or 4 receiving touchdowns, really good out of the backfield. And then he has, like 7 rushing touchdowns. And then Spencer said Tyler Algier, 12 touchdowns. So there we go.
Okay.
Leading tackler, who you got? I
went with Peyton Wilgar, and I've got him with 87 tackles.
Way to be specific.
Leading.
Welcome.
I just, I saw how you did it. I'm like, I admire that. So I'm going to go with 87.
Like a minute ago?
Sure, yeah. 87 and Peyton Wilgar.
I'm going Peyton Wilgar as well, but north of 100. I'm going 103 on that. Keenan Peely's the pick for Spencer at 91, which is a good pick. The Mike linebacker typically is the leading tackler or one of the safeties.
And I believe it was Isaiah Kafusi last year in the mid-80s was the leading tackler.
Yeah. So there you go. Okay, who will lead the team in interceptions and how many?
We actually all agree on the number, but we differ on the person. I went with Malik Moore with 3.
The free safety.
Yes, okay. I've given it to Malik Moore this year.
I said Chaz Ayu at strong safety, and Spencer says Malik Moore with 3 as well. So there you go. See, I benefit in no way, shape, or form if I pick the same thing, and this, So you got to be a little different.
You got to mix it up
if you're going to win this. I don't really care. How many 50-yard field goals and how long will they be this year for BYU?
I'm saying
the longest.
Yes, I'm saying 3 field goals of 50 or more.
That happened last year too.
And I say that the longest of them will be 55.
55. Okay, I say 2, and that Jake Oldroyd will set the BYU record, go north of 56 to 57 yards. Spencer says 3, 56.
Okay, we're all right there. Yeah, we're all right there.
Isaac Rex, the Elk. How many touchdowns is he going to score?
9.
Ooh.
9 touchdowns.
That's pretty good. He won't top 12. He won't top 12 again. I mean, that was insane.
There's just so many weapons,
yes.
And now you're adding a Dallin Holker with him,
and you're not going to play that schedule.
Yeah. But
there it is.
So I'm saying 9. I very much wanted to go to 10. I went conservative at 9.
Okay. I have 6 because I think Dallin Holker will take some of those, and the receivers. Gunnar Romney touchdowns.
Gunnar Romney, I have 6. He had 2 last year.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with 6 this year.
I'm going up to 8. I think if he's the leading receiver in yards, he's going to get some of those in the end zone. Let's go.
All right, I have no problem with it.
Yeah, you don't. And Spence has 6 as well. Same number. Come on. Jaron Hall will start X amount of games.
I don't like this question.
I don't like it
I don't
either.
like the question. I hate
an assumption of injury or ineptitude, the 2 eyes.
Yeah,
You and I said 13.
I'm not going to put anything beyond starting every game on Jaron Hall.
Spence said 11. Okay. BYU's final record will be, we all have the same record.
That's good, though, because...
You think so?
I think that's good. Okay. We all went 9-4.
I thought about 8-5. But I expect 8-5. I hope for 9-4. That's where we're at.
Yeah, I do not think 9-4 is unrealistic this year. I do not.
We think this team's good.
Yes,
and we think of the 7 Power 5s, there are 4 that are super winnable.
Look, we're going to know a lot about.
Going to get at least 1.
We're going to know a lot about this team after week 2.
Yes,
we are.
We're not going to know as much after week 1 because Arizona doth stinketh. Okay, points per game. What you got?
I say 34. I like 34. Because felt the prompting.
From who? I have 32, and Spencer has 30. So we're all in the 30s. Being in the 30s good. If you're in the 20s, you're not that good. Okay. Points allowed. This is a big one.
Look, I am all about the keeping it under 24, so I went 23.
Nice.
Yes. So 23
Bronco,
points
is
per
that
game.
you? Nick Howell? Is that you?
I wonder if we'll be able to keep Bronco under 24 points that game.
And the Broncos?
No, not
Boise
the Broncos.
State?
Well, that's fine too.
Yeah, that's there too.
But ironic if Bronco comes in and his whole thing of keeping under 24, and then he's kept under 24.
Yes. We'll keep an eye on that. October 30th. I said 26 points per game. I believe in this offense more than you guys. And then just waiting for a reaction from you. Nothing?
You said 26?
Yeah.
You mean so you think the defense will give up more points?
You're right. I don't believe in the defense as much as you guys. That's a mistake. I think BYU will get in some shootouts with some good teams.
Yeah, I would think so.
But yes. Offensively, you believe in this team offensively the most.
I believe, yes.
And I don't believe in this team defensively. No, I do believe in this team defensively. I like, So, well, it depends. If you win a game 51-28, hey, you gave up 28. But you scored 51,
so it doesn't matter.
It's all good. Okay, what do you think? Our question of the day. What's your best hot take projection for BYU football this year? I can't wait to hear these. Let's hear from you in Voice of the Nation.
This is the Voice of the Nation on BYU Sports Nation.
Use Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to weigh in. Yeah.
All right, coming up, who is the most intriguing Cougar? It's a very intriguing question.
I like that. Cosmo's the obvious answer, but who else you got? And we'll talk with Jonny Linehan. Let's talk about the specialist. Kicker, punter, Jake Oldroyd, Ryan Rico. How good are these guys? This is BYU Sports Nation.
They prefer to be bringing the heat, getting set for success, demonstrating their drive. But when their blood and sweat turns to tears or anything else, we lay the groundwork for BYU's athletes to hit the ground running again, and you as well. Intermountain Healthcare, official medical provider for BYU athletics.
If I got hurt and was laid up at home, I wouldn't even think to call a lawyer. What a hassle. I'd want to meet them first.
What if I told you that for your first consultation, your lawyer will come to you, home or hospital?
Really?
Really.
They do that?
If you've been seriously injured, we'll come to you. It's your job to get better. It's our job to deal with the insurance companies and protect your legal rights.
Learn more at siegfriedandjensen.com.
This is Countdown to Kickoff.
Guys, I'm done. Players are tough. Broadcasters are way tougher than players.
Absolutely.
Algier into the end zone. A little punctuation. That is how you start Countdown to Kickoff.
Touchdown, Isaac Rex laying out for the score.
I'm going to mark that one down. That's big enough.
Early spicy, mark it down.
Mark it down.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
Join us for a special BYU Sports Nation live from Las Vegas at FanFest tomorrow. Jarom Jordan will be hanging out with BYU alums and fans as we get you ready for the BYU season opener. Watch tomorrow, 9 Eastern, right here on BYU TV and the app.
Going to be fun. It's going to be a massive contingent of Cougar fans in Vegas. Can't wait to see all of you tomorrow night. We are live in Studio B with your day-to-day BYU Sports play-by-play. I'm Jarom Jordan alongside Jason Shepard. We are that much closer to the game. Hit it.
Countdown to the Wildcats.
2 days away. Okay, I'm interested to see if we're going confetti or not tomorrow. 1 day away, the day before.
Oh, okay.
Might get crazy in here. Might be some chocolate milk consumed. Might get nuts. Speaking of crazy, our next guest is a homie. You know him, you love him. Jonny Linehan on the program. Talk about the specialist. Jonny, what is up, my man? That Royal Blue's looking good, bro.
Hey, how's it going? Glad to be here. Everything's going well. Just excited for this weekend. Made a spontaneous trip to go down with one of the homies to the game, so I'm going to be there. Excited to be back in full capacity and get rowdy with the Cougs.
It's going to be awesome. I know you were dealing with the 30% service fee from StubHub, so welcome to the life that everyone else has, right?
Yeah, I know. It's been a long time since I've been that quick to exit a website once I've seen the price on that. So I was like, man, it's gotta be cheaper tickets somewhere else. So no, yeah, we'll bite the bullet. We'll stay with some friends as well, so we'll save some money there. But yeah, I mean, what's that MasterCard ad, right? Watching the Cougars beat Arizona again, it's priceless.
Priceless. Mm-hmm. You know, let's get it big picture. What do you make of this team? What excites you when you look at this team in general as it gets ready to begin the year?
Well, obviously the specialists, right?
Of course.
But, I mean, talking of the team in general, there are actually quite a few unknowns. I was going to go down to a practice at fall camp this year, and just before I got in the car to drive down, I was like, that might be a little bit weird. Most of these guys, I mean, most of the coaches will know me because they're still there. But a lot of the players, when I went to walk through the locker room, they were kind of looking like, who's this guy? I had a work shirt on, and I think they were thinking I was trying to sell some NIL deals or something like that. So they were all on their best behavior. But I was like, no, I used to be on the team, guys. I'm old now. But so I thought it was, yeah. So I actually stayed away from fall camp this year and didn't end up going down. So there's a lot of unknowns. And we obviously lost a lot of good production last year, but we did retain some talent. We did bring in some more talent through transfers and other recruits. So a lot of unknowns. I'm excited. I'm pretty bullish, but I think there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for some players. So I don't know if we're going to be able to hit the ground running as fast as we ended last season.
Yeah, last year was certainly special in a million ways. The good news is BYU's playing Arizona. I feel confident that BYU will win and win convincingly. That margin I believe in will be revealed tomorrow. But let's talk about the specialists, okay? Let's start with kicker. Jake Oldroyd is back. Somehow 5 years ago he was freshman, and he's a sophomore. This guy's legit, Jonny. How do you feel about him, and what's he capable of after being a Lou Groza finalist last year?
Yeah, well, Jake, obviously his freshman year ended up redshirting in 2016 because he got hurt in our third game against UCLA. So, yeah, he kind of went on his mission, came back, and still had all of his 4 years, and then COVID gives him another year. So he might be, serving his senior mission while he's still finishing up his playing days at BYU. But Jake and I, we hit it off right from the beginning. It's kind of funny because just kind of the story and why I'm so bullish on Jake and also why I'm his biggest fan and why we have a bromance on Twitter is a little bit of a story there. So I'll try and do the too long didn't read version. But when he first came to BYU as a walk-on, no one knew who he was, right? We're out there kicking, and as soon as I saw him kicking, just before fall camp had even begun, I was like, man, this kid is special. There's a lot to him. Anyway, so we go in. He starts fall camp pretty much on the first day, tears his meniscus, right? This is actually on a Sunday, so maybe just after we had reported for fall camp. Still, no one knows what he's doing or who he is. So he's in his apartment just stretching, And he calls me up, and I'm in church getting ready to pass the sacrament. And he's like, hey, Jonny, I just was stretching, and my knee popped. And I was like, hey, Bishop, sorry, I got to go. There's something else. Just kidding. I obviously fulfilled my calling and whatever. And then went and picked him up. Anyway, we went to his apartment complex. He couldn't walk. I was like, man, what did you do? He's like, I was just stretching. So anyway, I'm like, all right, jump on my back. So I piggyback him down the stairs, throw him in the car. Good news is training room is open on Sundays, because they're doing the Lord's work. And so we went in and I said to Steve, our head trainer, and I said, hey, Steve's a homie. He loves me. He doesn't know Jake. So usually a player that you don't know and is new and is a kicker might not get the treatment. But I said, we got to get this guy, and he's special. He's going to help us win games. So we got meniscus surgery a couple of days later. 2 weeks after meniscus surgery, he's out there kicking 60-yard field goals. We know how that ends with the Arizona game winner. But then he had this nagging back injury. So really the only question mark is, can he stay healthy? But when he's healthy, he's a superstar. He is special.
You're telling me tore his meniscus weeks before the Arizona game in 2016 and then goes out there and kicks the game winner?
Yeah, so what's interesting, we had some unknowns there, especially at kicker. Obviously, we had an amazing punter. We didn't have to worry about that year. But kicker, there were some question marks. And so, just kidding. Maybe slightly above average, a little bit mediocre some days. But statistically speaking, the punter was all right. Anyway, but with our kicker, right, Coach Sataki, after one practice, we had a pretty bad practice with our kickers missing left and right. And Coach Sataki was like, Jonny, what are we going to do? I said, Jake, don't worry about it. Like, when he comes back, he'll be good to go. So it's kind of funny how it all worked out. And then obviously he comes back. His first field goal is a game winner. So that's why it's so special. That's why it'll be one of my favorite moments ever.
Jonny, and we're having fun, talking about how great the special teams and everything are and the kickers. But when you look at having a guy like Oldroyd and having a punter like Ryan Rico, I mean, Ryan Rico probably doesn't get talked about enough, and as much as we should be talking about how good he is when he's out there punting, between the two of them, that is a massive weapon for BYU.
Yeah, I 100% believe we have the best special teams in the country. And I know I like to make a joke of the position. I know a lot of people like to make fun of the special teams, but having a reliable kicker and having a punter that can flip the field like Ryan is such a special talent. And we didn't see that last year, which is probably a good thing. This year with a much more difficult schedule, I expect us to see it and really see what a weapon he is. But he's an NFL guy. So is Jake. Both of these guys are just NFL guys. And for me to say that, I recognize there's 32 spots in the world for a punter and then 32 for a kicker. And so having two NFL guys be that reliable, we're witnessing something special on the special teams at BYU.
Tell me about Ryan. What makes him such an excellent punter? 45 a kick last year, and I believe he would have been one of the tops in the country, but he had too few punts because Zach Wilson and the boys were scoring too often.
Yeah, so, I mean, you go and watch Ryan as he's warming up, and you see how consistent he is, right? It starts with the drop. Everything is the same. Every punt is just a bomb, right? When I was learning, the drop would be all over the place. Sometimes I'd hit a good one. Sometimes it would be average. But Ryan's is like consistently very, very good. And then he's got the measurables. He's a big guy. He can just put his leg through it like someone who's shorter, like I just can't. And so he's got everything, and then he's been practicing for a long time. Yeah, he's really kind of got the perfect chemistry for a punter, but it's consistency. You'll see this guy warm up, and it's like the same ball over and over, and they're all monster balls.
We've talked, obviously, about the 2016. We've referenced it a couple of times in this interview already. Take us back. What do you remember from that game in 2016 in Glendale against the Arizona Wildcats?
Yeah, I remember everything, right? Like I said, it was an awesome moment. I remember the games I punt pretty well in, right? More than the ones that I don't, and definitely don't remember any ones where I do other things other than punting. But, we started off, and we were feeling pretty good going into the first game. We knew Arizona was a decent opponent. They had some, question marks with coaching staff, etc. But we prepare for camp, and we're pretty confident going into game one, very excited. So we come out, I think we score first, but then we missed the PAT. And so I think we actually scored a field goal first. It was pretty shaky, low one that just got over the line, and then we missed the PAT. And so from there, the coaches are kind of like, well, what do we do? What do we do? Well, anyway, like you see with any game, the PAT usually comes back to haunt you. So we find ourselves down one at the end, And yeah, obviously we need a field goal. And by that point, it was like, Jake's the next kick. He's the next field goal. Didn't matter if it was in the third quarter, fourth quarter. It just happened to be the last kick of the game. He was taking the next one regardless. So he knew that. He'd been warming up for that. And it was just kind of a perfect scene, really a Disney movie, that he got to take that game winner and nail it like he did.
How many guys on the team didn't know who he was or his name at that moment?
Yeah, it was funny. I do remember that too. A lot of people were like, who is this guy? I remember Jamal coming up to me like right before the kick, being like, hey, Johnny, who's this guy? Is he any good? Is he going to make it? You know, Jamal pretty out there. And it's funny because even the fans, right, as a punter, I kind of have a different role where it's like, I'll get in the mindset, like, yes, I have to always be in the mindset ready to go on the field. But as soon as we pass the 40, it's like, hey, I can pretty much switch off for 40 minutes because I'm probably not going on the field. So anyway, obviously when the game's over or overtime, it's like I'm just a dude on the sideline, really. It's like I'm a waste of space because I wasn't holding. And the fans, right, as they called a timeout to try and ice Jake, they're like, hey, Johnny, who is this guy? You know, he's got the green cleats on and Under Armour shirt underneath, you know, that Nike had a fit about, but we didn't give him one. And so they're like, is he going to make it? And I was really confident. I said, hey, like, I'm confident he's not going to miss. He's going to make it. So it's funny when he kicked it, right? You can kind of see, no one would notice, but you can see like my feet on the screen running past. I just went down to the kicking net. I said, all of the guys that don't know who he is, they're going to want to celebrate with him, you know, jump on him because he kicked the game winner. Be like, yeah, good kick. Who are you? You know, but I was like, we'll meet at the kicking net and we'll celebrate afterwards. So I just let him have that moment, and it's an awesome moment. I still watch it probably once a week because it was really special.
That's incredible.
Am I remembering this? Didn't Detmer say he had no idea who he was? Didn't Detmer say that?
I didn't know who Jake was at the time.
well, yeah. Jake played in Texas, so maybe, you know, he kind of knew of him. But that was the game where Detmer, I think, right? He was eating like 10 chapsticks. He's on the, you know, on screen.
He loves
right
him.
Yeah. And right as the timeout, I think Detmer goes up and like high fives him and just gives him a vote of confidence. But yeah, that's kind of the worst thing you want to do to a kicker. Just let him be in his space. He's going to nail it. But I will say, that's the thing. That's why I'm really bullish on Jake. He's got that mindset. Yeah. We did speak in 2019, I believe it was, when he was doing punting and kicking. He was having a bit of a rough season, and he came over after a couple of rough games and was just trying to, you know, talk with me. Hey, how do I get back in the groove of things? But really focusing just on one, kicking, being able to have that mindset of just kicking has really helped him out. That's why he should have won the Groza. That's why I think he will be up there again and hopefully win it this year.
Yeah, he's an incredible kid. The story's incredible, and we learned even more than we already knew about that. So, Johnny, as always, we appreciate the time breaking down the specialists like nobody else can.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Go Cougs.
Okay, we'll
Thanks,
see you
Johnny.
down there. Johnny Linehan on BYU Sports Station.
Great.
Incredible story. I didn't realize he tore his meniscus.
Had never heard that.
All camp.
Did not know that.
And you know, Jake has kept that quiet. Johnny tells us that. But
2 weeks?
Like what?
Like within weeks of having that, you're kicking the game winner.
And then, yeah, he tweaks his back later, goes on his mission. We kind of forget about him. He comes back. He leads the country initially in 2019. He's 10 of 11 for a while. And then he goes through a real funk. And then this last year, he does not miss a field goal.
He was phenomenal.
What an incredible comeback from Jake Oldroyd. So, yes, health is of the utmost concern for Jake because when he's healthy, he's incredible.
Great stuff. And speaking of great stuff, coming up, BYU Volleyball added an All-American in the offseason, and we'll ask her how she got here.
And reading into the statement from the Big 12, Max Olson weighing in as well. What do we think? This is BYU Sports Nation.
Introducing the all-new 2021 Nissan Rogue. A fuel-efficient car that's compact enough to park just about anywhere, but has enough cargo space to fit your hobbies, your kids' hobbies, and your dog's hobbies. It's equipped with the latest safety and efficiency technology for a smooth and quiet ride wherever you want to go, whether it's through the neighborhood or across the country. Are you ready to Rogue? It's at Tim Daly Nissan Southtown.
When my grandfather started this company in 1947, he couldn't have envisioned what we would ultimately become. We realized that our value to our customers is that we will be there day after day, year after year, doing whatever we need to find solutions to the challenges that they face. We are committed to be honestly better in all that we do, in every opportunity that we have to serve our customers.
Hi, Spencer Linton here, letting you know when your company joins the BYU team as a corporate partner, your brand can be featured in sports programming on BYU TV and BYU Radio. In addition to all of the great games, you can be part of the BYU coaches shows, place your message in Countdown to Kickoff, basketball pre- and post-game shows, and each weekday on BYU Sports Nation. We invite your team to join ours and become a corporate sponsor of BYU Athletics. For details, email sponsorship@byu.edu today.
Familiar with the BYU TV app? Yes.
I beg your pardon?
Sure, it's got great original TV shows. But it also gives you access to family films for free.
Wow. Awesome!
So gather around, grab some popcorn, and let us do the rest.
It'll be fun.
Watch some of your favorite films anytime, anywhere. With the free BYU TV app.
I like it.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Visible Supply Chain Management.
Off a loss on Monday at Arkansas. Looks to rebound at home tonight, hosting Marquette. Watch the match 9 Eastern on the BYU TV app.
He's Jason. I'm Jarom. This is BYU Sports Nation. Don't forget to follow us on social media. BYU Sports Nation on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Let's whip it. Coug Whip Around is presented by Visible Supply Chain Management, tackling America's most challenging shipping problems.
All right, Sports Illustrated lists Isaac Rex as honorable mention most intriguing player this year in college football. Is the Elk the most intriguing Cougar in your mind?
I think in terms of like deep blue stories, so Peyton Wilgar is my guy. There's a story with Peyton that we're going to tell this year that has not been told by anyone about off-the-field stuff with him. On the field, he's probably BYU's best defensive player as well. So he's the most intriguing guy to me for those two angles.
Well, I guess I'm looking at it more from an angle of intriguing. I look almost intriguing
like
is somewhat unknown.
Okay.
So I don't put
Tyler Algier for you?
No.
I'm just kidding.
I'm going to use, even though we know stuff about him, I still think the most intriguing is Jaron Hall. I'm very curious.
Yeah, totally.
I'm very curious how this plays out this year. I have high expectations for Jaron Hall.
Jaron Hall has not completed a game he started quite yet,
So
right?
for me, that's why I go that route.
There's a lot of intrigue there. How about the Nakuas?
Yeah.
Big intrigue. Chaz Ayu as a full-time starter on the back end. Yes, we haven't seen all this stuff quite yet. Which BYU Cougar signed on a practice squad has the best opportunity to get back on the 53-man roster at some point this season?
It'll sound like a homer pick. I'm going to say Zane Anderson. If you saw yesterday in the NFL, Tyrann Mathieu tested positive for COVID. He's a safety.
The Honey Badger.
So there is a chance that they need a safety from their practice squad. So I think it may very well be Zane Anderson that gets, promoted up if Mathieu cannot be ready by week 1.
I'm thinking Chris Wilcox, once he gets over that hamstring, he was valued enough to be picked up injured by the Colts.
Right.
He's one that's intriguing. And then offensive linemen get hurt a bunch. Corbin Kafusi with the Niners. I think he's got a shot at making the 53 off the practice squad.
All right, what is your wildest read into the statement from the Big 12?
Okay, I looked into this. There are 3 Bs, 1 Y, and 7 U's. Okay, 3 letters in BYU, 1 national championship, 7 college football Hall of Famers. That equals 11 letters, which was Zach Wilson's freshman jersey number. None of that matters. No, there's nothing. It's completely vague.
It is completely vague, but I think it's purposely vague because they didn't want BYU to immediately know that the invite was coming. They're like, we're going to be so vague.
That fake Jason Shepard won't even see it on Twitter.
Yes.
And who will be home for us tonight? You or I? I'm calling volleyball. You're calling soccer.
I would say probably you.
I'm thinking I will.
Yeah. I mean, the likelihood of BYU getting 3 sets and calling it a night. And then soccer typically, it's 2 hours if you have extra.
Unless you have extra time.
Yeah, but usually it's right around 2 hours. I think you're going to be done inside 2 hours.
I have 3 or 4 sets.
Are you going to come over and watch if you're done first?
I'll come give you Nux. I got games to watch tonight. I got Utah.
So whichever
Weaver
one
State.
of us is done first.
I got UCF Boise State.
Yes.
I got USA men's soccer. There's a lot to watch.
Whichever one of us is done first, the other has to come over to the other broadcast.
Give Nux.
Yes.
Bow. Respectfully.
Bow.
And then
Okay.
Leave. Okay.
All right.
Cool.
Done.
Pinky.
Come.
Verbal pinky swear.
Yes. Heather Olmstead's like,
Why are they talking about a sweep?
All right. Yeah. Coming up, rise and shout out to an idea that tonight becomes a reality.
And Kenzie Keorber, 3-time All-American at Utah, coming down to BYU. She's already played a couple of matches. She's the real deal. She'll join us next on BYU Sports Nation.
Luxurious blanket. Getting cozy with family and friends. A gift for everyone. Minky Couture, official luxury blanket of BYU Athletics.
Dexter & Dexter is a full-service law firm offering a wide range of legal services. Since 1995, we have helped more than 20,000 Utahns both to navigate life's challenges and to make the most of life's opportunities. From personal injury to business law, and from adoption to bankruptcy, we are passionate about shouldering your burdens. To learn more about scheduling a no-obligation consultation, visit dexterlaw.com.
One thing Mountain America has learned over nearly a century of helping members achieve their financial dreams is that we are stronger together. We achieve great things together. And while we are still here to serve you, we know together feels different right now. It might take some time, but we're looking forward to the day when we can gather together again. We're still here, guiding you forward.
Let's kick off AFR on BYU TV.
What they did in that fourth quarter was not unexpected in my book.
Everyone did their job perfectly, and it resulted in, obviously, a touchdown.
Who knew that he had these kind of hands?
And right at the snap of the football, they both go right downhill. And that was the end of that. He knocked him down pretty quickly.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
Watch a 2-hour countdown to kickoff special Saturday live from Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas as BYU gets ready to face Arizona in the season opener. It is right upon us. Join Dave, Blaine, David, and Jarom as they get you ready for kickoff. Coverage begins 8:30 Eastern on BYU TV and the app.
Welcome back to BYU Sports Nation live from Studio B. The women's volleyball team last year got to the Sweet 16 and returned several All-Americans. Add to that Heather Knighting back from her mission now 7 weeks ago, and a 3-time All-American opposite lefty from the University of Utah. Here is a grad transfer to BYU. Her name is Kenzie Keorber, and BYU is loaded. Kenzie, welcome to the program for the first time.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Good to be here.
It's great to have you here. First off, let's talk about the decision to come to BYU in the first place. Not often do the two swap players in the rivalry, but here we are. You look great in blue. What went into the decision to become a BYU Cougar?
Yeah, so I played my senior year this spring. I actually didn't know if I was going to come back and play a fifth year anywhere. I was kind of planning to go pro, and I thought maybe that was the next step that I needed to take. But after a lot of thought and consideration, I was like, you know, not everyone gets this fifth year. Like, there's so many athletes out there that would have died to have another year of college. And so I spent a lot of time talking to a lot of ex-college athletes that were like, dude, like you need to play another year. So decided to play another year, and then came the decision, well, do I want to stay here or do I want to go somewhere else? And I just felt that I needed to go somewhere that was going to help me progress as a person and a player, more importantly, a person. And so, you know, I played for Heather in Japan 2 years ago. I've formed a great relationship with her there, and I've had a lot of friends down in Provo. A lot of times when we had off weekends, I'd come down here and hang out with people. So I was down here a lot, and I wasn't ready. I didn't want to leave the state of Utah because I have a ton of family here, but it just felt like BYU was the place that I needed to be, especially with being a recent convert. I knew that it would help me progress as a person down here, and I like what Heather does with her program, and I wanted to be a part of it. So that's why I decided to come down here.
Well, and as Jarom mentioned coming in, I mean, this team is just absolutely loaded, and the fact that you're added to the mix makes it even better. What's been maybe the biggest takeaway on this team early on in the first couple of weeks that you've seen?
Yeah, so we've been in the fall camp grind for a few weeks, and then we finally got to be put to the test this weekend. And I think most incredible thing to see from my point of view is that there are no weaknesses in any position. We have depth that goes so deep in the bench. We have amazing middles that are putting up big numbers, high hitting percentages. We have stellar outsides. We have a tank of a setter. We have good liberos. Like, we're stacked in kind of every position. So it's been cool to see that it's not just a team that has one superstar that they rely on to do everything. It's cool to see the strengths in each position. So I think that's been the biggest thing that I think all of us have seen and that we want to continue to build on. So
what did you expect last weekend to be like versus what it was?
I didn't really know coming. It's my first, I almost felt like a freshman again. Like, I didn't know what it was going to be like, the crowd, first time in a BYU jersey. Like, it was pretty real for me. It was pretty new. I felt like I was a little freshman. I'm like, wait, I've done this for 4 years. So I didn't really know what to expect. We had a good 2 weeks of fall camp and double days. So it was always very competitive. So I knew that we would perform, but I don't think I expected it to be like that. Like, it was like games were over in an hour at most. So I was like, whoa, that was pretty quick. But no, it was super fun. It was everything that I could have hoped for it to be. 2 nights in a row with 4,800, 5,000 people is incredible. So I loved every second of it. And I'm glad that we're here again this week. So
I thought there would be decent crowds. I did not expect, like you said, 4,800 and 4,400 in the first 2 nights. That was special. What was it like for you playing in that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, every time I've come down here in the past, it's been like that, but I've been on the opposite side of the cheering. So to finally play in front of those fans and know that they weren't going to be in my ear cheering against me when I'm serving was the coolest thing. I mean, I'm someone that thrives off of energy and thrives off of a crowd. And so, coming from a season where I played in front of cardboard cutouts to now 4,800 real people was the best feeling again. It helps me elevate my energy and my performance. And so it was a great experience. Obviously, in a perfect world, we have 5,000 people at every game, but I know that probably won't happen, but I was super grateful to have all those fans there this weekend. So
the most attended game in the Smithfield House for women's volleyball ever was the 2018 game against Utah. BYU won this in 3. Like you said, you were on the other side of that. What do you remember from that, and how happy are you to be on the other end now?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of tried to block out that game. It was kind of ugly for me. So I just remember not even being able to think after BYU scored a point. Like, it was so loud, I couldn't hear myself think at all, and my head was just pounding. And I kind of felt that this weekend of, like, when we'd get a point, it was still the same effect, but it was nice knowing that they were cheering for us, and that really helped me just be in the moment and, like, continue to bring the energy that I know my team thrives off of. So it was a breath of fresh air to be on the receiving end of that, for sure.
Your career has obviously been phenomenal, multiple-time All-American at Utah. So you're coming in as super accomplished. What do you feel you personally add to this group?
Yeah, so I've been doing this for 4 years now, so I feel like I bring a lot of leadership skills. I've played in Pac-12 conference, been to 2 Sweet 16s that ended in 5 very close. So I feel like I have a lot of experience that I am able to bring to this team and continue to try to lead them. I also have mentioned my energy. That's kind of what I've been known as my whole college career, is the girl that has the crazy energy, is intense. And so that's how I play. That's not made up energy. I always will play like that. And it's been fun to hear some of the girls say, it's so fun. Like, I love when you get in my face and you hype me up. So I think that I bring the leadership and bring the energy and just being steady. Playing 6 rotations, you have a lot that you have to think about in a game: passing, defense, serving, aside from the hitting, blocking, off blocker. So there's a lot that I have to think about during a game, but I'm grateful for the experience that I have under my belt that allows me to do all that with confidence and hopefully with ease. And if one area is struggling, making up for it in another. So
you referenced earlier in the interview, the overall depth and, good luck trying to find a weakness on this team. How much fun is that to be a part of in terms of just regardless of who comes in, who's on the floor, you guys know that the level of play is always going to stay high?
Yeah, so I think it's awesome that we have that trust and that there isn't anyone on the team where if they go in or someone's playing bad, we sub someone in, that we're going to be fearful that it's not going to be good. So I think it's awesome, the level of trust that we have within each other and along with the coaching staff. I fully trust the coaches and their decisions, and they're amazing coaches. And so I know that they're always going to put the players out there that they believe will help us win and accomplish the goals that we have for the season. So it's super cool that this weekend we got to do a lot of that. We got to sub in a lot of people and just be excited for them and know that they are going to perform well. And I think everyone that went in had great performances. So it's cool to know that if someone's down, or especially with COVID still, like if someone tests positive or people are contact traced, like we know that we're going to be taken care of. So.
And hopefully that doesn't happen. Yeah, that'd be great. Kenzie, 2 weeks from tonight, BYU's hosting Utah. What's that night going to be like for you?
Yeah, so that game's in the back of my mind a lot. I think about a lot. Sometimes I have dreams about it. So it's been obviously the talk of ever since I've made the move down here. People call me, come up to me, what's that game going to look like? So it's definitely something I think about a lot. I think we are obviously focused on tonight. We don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. We're focused on Weber State tonight at 7, but I have full confidence in my team and our abilities and our coaching staff. And I obviously have an idea of what I want that game to look like and what I think it'll look like, but not getting ahead of ourselves and just continuing to get better at the little things. And I'm really grateful that we're playing in the field house for that game. I think our fan base will be a big factor to that and helping us in creating that environment. So I'm really excited. I think about it a lot, but we're obviously staying focused on tonight.
And we can stay focused on that match as well. Well, you focused on Weber State, which will be fun.
Right, exactly.
We look forward to that one. Of course, tonight, Weber State, 9 Eastern time on BYU TV and the app. Kenzie, we appreciate the time, and thanks for coming to BYU. It's really fun to watch you play.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Thank you. Kenzie Keorber, BYU women's volleyball. She's awesome. She plays with so much juice, and she's extremely skilled as well. She has made a very good team. A great team.
Right. Well, yeah, and this team is going to be very, very good. We see it year in, year out. You know,
it's just how good.
Now you add a 3-time All-American to the mix, and then you're not only does it help on the court, but your depth then improves.
Yes.
It just permeates throughout the entire program when you continue to add talent. Not just adding talent that way, but with what Coach Olmstead and her staff does and bringing in the young talent, which she will play and rely on it at certain points. The program is just in such a great spot.
Loaded, man. Loaded.
All right, coming up, your best hot take projections.
And today's Rise and Shoutouts and the Elite Voice of the Day. Did you get it? Is it you? We'll find out. This is BYU Sports Nation.
Trio Orem Senior Living believes in empowering seniors to live life to the fullest. We help eliminate stress out of daily life when you live at Trio. Less time focusing on housework means you can socialize at one of our many events, with safety in mind, of course. And did we mention our spacious apartments with modern amenities? Learn more about setting up a private tour at trioorem.com.
We are looking for Jarrell's biological family.
This journey to see if I have any siblings or if my mom is still alive, if my dad's still alive, I have always wanted to do it.
I don't know what I'm getting myself into.
Our biggest challenge, I think, would be land navigation. We are very bubbly, happy.
No negativity, just a really kind of funny team. You're in for a treat with Jarrell.
Rebecca is our first para-athlete. So, your very first sport, alpine skiing.
I'm looking over at the top of the hill and my stomach just gets so queasy.
every moment matters.
Considering this is only his third day on snow, this is pretty impressive.
Let's go!
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics.
BYU Sports Nation, always available on demand via the free BYU TV and BYU Radio app.
Or download the podcast. Just Google BYU Sports Nation podcast. While you're there, subscribe, rate, and review.
Our question of the day, what's your best hot take projection for BYU football this season? Ben Nichols on Twitter. BYU proves everyone wrong who said last year's success was only due to a weaker schedule. BYU will get into a New Year's Six Bowl as the newest representative of the Big 12. Well, that ain't happening this year, but yeah, at Kip Kent on Twitter, meaning the Big 12 part. The streak ends in road upsets against Washington State and Baylor. BYU undefeated. The college football world buzzing about a top 10 matchup against USC in the final game. BYU likely sees its undefeated season come to an end against Trojan, but what if?
Oh, is that the latest on Marvel?
I haven't watched episode 4.
I watched it yesterday.
Nice.
Yeah.
Don't tell me anything. In our in response, our elite voice of the day presented by Sundance.
I'm just going to blurt it out.
Sundance Mountain Resort at Mad Eye Cosmo on Twitter. I will eat my weight in Cougar tails while watching BYU football at LaVell Edwards Stadium. Hashtag less than 72 hours.
Well, he needs to put in what his weight is then.
If you want, yeah.
I need to know how many Cougar tails that actually entails.
The team has to keep the next opponent in mind. We don't. Utah's next week, don't forget. So, yeah. Today's Rise and Shoutouts are brought to you by Mountain America, the official credit union of the BYU Cougars. Shout out to my guy, Richard Henniger, who never misses a show. To college football, last week was week 0.
Forget this week 0 stuff.
Week 1, there's some good games tonight, which will be really fun. The Big 12 playing game between UCF and Boise State will be fun to watch.
Yeah, based off of the report earlier, it may sound like it doesn't matter what happens.
And a note I should have brought up last segment, but did not. Maddie Robinson transferred from BYU to Utah a couple years ago. So it's not like this is the first BYU-Utah switch in volleyball. It's happened a couple times.
Correct.
In football.
We just
not a ton in basketball, though Caleb Lohner signed at Utah.
Yeah, it is rare, but it does happen.
Yes. And of course, Devin Kafusi up at Utah. So it does happen. It does happen, and it's all good. It adds a little wrinkle to the rivalry, which I think is kind of fun.
We certainly like it a lot more when it's red to blue.
Yeah,
that
like
is our
Austin
preference.
Lee.
That is our preference, if we're being honest here.
Fantastic. Kairos Tonga was going to sign at Utah. Nope, came to BYU. There have been others.
All he's going to do is start on the defensive line for the Chicago Bears right now.
Let's go, man. Let's go. Okay. Our thanks to today's guest, Jonny Linehan. Crazy, amazing stories from Jonny and Kenzie Keorber.
All right, conversation continues 24/7 on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Always use hashtag BYUSN.
For Jason, I'm Jarom. Shout out to Kayla Morgan. See you tonight for a doubleheader at 9 Eastern Time. Women's soccer taking on Marquette on the BYU TV app, and women's volleyball taking on Weber State on the app and BYU TV, both at 9 Eastern. Go Cougs! Tomorrow's the day before the day!